Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Excellent. Thanks for coming out today. I'm Ranger Karen. I'm with the New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park. We are the only national park in the country dedicated to a single performance art, and that is jazz, of course, which was born right here in New Orleans. As you know, jazz is a living, breathing, continually evolving art form, and so a lot of what we do is provide live performances, so people like you and people at home can enjoy the music and learn a little bit about the music from the musicians that create it. So today we have a wonderful piano player with us. I hope you'll all give a big round of appreciation to Joe Krown.
Hello, how's everybody doing? They want me to talk on the microphone because I think they're streaming this, so I'm going to talk into this. My name is Joe Krown. I'm a New Orleans style piano player, and I see some familiar faces, but I will try to give some explanation to what it means to be a New Orleans style piano player. Part of this program is that we obviously I will play the piano, but I'm going to try to give some sort of educational aspect to why this is this style that I play. So most of the stuff about New Orleans piano, there is a certain distinctive style to it that is been born and bred, and it's totally unique to the city and to the sound, and it's been something that people have copied and tried to do their whole thing, in many different forms and different ways. But the New Orleans style piano originates from the blues style, or traditional piano styles of stride and boogie woogie mixed together with some Caribbean music. And the way that I'm going to try to give you guys some sort of explanation to this is in a rhythmic way. And what I mean by rhythmic, I mean like the drum beats, or when you tap your feet and do all those kind of things of that sort. And I'll start out with the origins of it, because it is deep-rooted in a style we call boogie woogie. And that style was a very straight style, very square. Your left hand holds down the rhythm, and your right hand plays the melody. And most of the stuff is pretty much generated that same way, that my left hand will hold the rhythm and my right hand plays the melody. So I'm going to just do some boogie woogie. This is actually something I wrote a while ago. This is it's called, I think I called it the Chapatula Street Rag, or Chapatula Street Boogie, because I think I have one that's a rag. Thank you very much. That's Boogie Woogie, and I'm going to break this down a little bit just so you can identify a few things that are happening in this. Boogie Woogie is really just a rhythm, and it's actually referred to, the technical term is called 8 to the bar. And the reason it's called that is if we break down our drum beat, and this is what we call a four beats to a measure, or 4 beats to a bar, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you would hear drums go 1, 2. That's just a straight foxtrot or a 4/4, what we call a 4/4 time beat. And it's called 8 to the bar because my left hand does 2 notes for every beat. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Okay? And it's very square. It stays very consistent like that. Okay? That's what the Boogie Woogie left hand is about. And I can take any song and place it in a Boogie Woogie feel. Okay? It's just a rhythm. It's not a melody. So like if I'll do something with a traditional song like Swanee River. I mean, I can do Boogie Woogie for anything. It's just a rhythm that sits on, that the melody is played on top of. And another style that is where the New Orleans style came out of is a style that we call stride piano. And stride, the reason it gets called stride is because if you watch my left hand, it actually jumps like this. And we call that, it's kind of like what I refer, or its street name is called a 2-beat because it's 1, 2, 2, 1. And again, on a 4/4 beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to do that all in my left hand. So I'm going to play something that's got a little bit of a stride beat to it. And this is an old traditional tune called Way Down Yonder in New Orleans. Thank you. Thank you. That's stride, and if you can actually see my left hand, it's jumping like this the whole time. And that's what stride piano is, and it's a more traditional, ragtime was actually an early version of stride piano. And if you notice, I play the melody, and then we do the little jazz thing where I improvise over the whole song. And what I mean by improvise, I just play my own melodies over the form of the song, and then I come back and do it. So after all this, you must be wondering, where's this New Orleans piano style? Well, let me get into that for a second. Back in sometime around the 1940s, there was a gentleman named Henry Roland Bird, and he was really the fork in the road. His government name was Henry Roland Bird, but we called him Professor Longhair. And he was the guy that kind of solidified the New Orleans style. And it has this, first of all, it has this kind of like rolling kind of sound to it, and it is what we call syncopated. If you've noticed, everything that I played up until now has been very square. The Boogie Woogie is... and stride is, you know... It's very, you know, very block square. Either you're doing 8 to the bar or you're doing a 2B where it's boom cha, like that kind of thing. The New Orleans sound had a mixture of a Caribbean feel to it, and some people call it the Afro-Cuban feel, but the street name of it is what we call the mambo feel. And it's got a lot more rhythm going on around it. It's got what we call a syncopation, where it's got like what the only way to describe it is it's kind of got a skip to it. And one of the more popular guys that kind of smoothed it out was Fats Domino. And if you all remember, you know, that's that syncopated feel. It's a lot different than, you know. Very square versus, and that's what the difference is in the New Orleans piano style. So I'm going to go right to the root, and I'm going to play some Professor Longhair songs for you guys, just so you can feel what what I mean by that rolling sound and that what we call the syncopated. It's almost like the only way to describe it is Caribbean, but you'll get a feel of it. And this is one of his more popular songs that he did, and the name of it is called Tippatina. And I've heard a lot of people say where this name came from, but I heard in an interview with Dr. John, who is a disciple of Professor Longhair, and he said that it was a bird. That Tippatina, that Fess told him that it was a bird. But anyway, there's a nightclub here in New Orleans at the base of Napoleon Avenue called Tippatina. It's a very famous nightclub, and it all came from this song that Professor Longhair did, and it's called Tippatina. And again, it got that syncopated Caribbean feel to it, and the right-hand melodies are very rolling. Once I start playing it, you go, oh yeah, that's what he was. Okay, so this is how this goes. Thank you. As you can see, the sound of it has this, it's first of all, it's not that square rhythmic kind of thing, and it has this really kind of rolling kind of sound to it. And Longhair really kind of was the guy that sat in the middle of the fork of the road. And, I always question, people that get credited with things, because I think there were other guys that were out there playing in this kind of thing. But Longhair was definitely the guy that was recorded, that had songs that got popular, and he was the guy that kind of like printed it. And speaking of popularity, one of the things that Professor Longhair was known for was he had a couple of songs that were about the Mardi Gras. And I don't know how many people here have ever been to the New Orleans Mardi Gras. I know there are some locals here. But what happens in New Orleans is we have our holiday seasons of Christmas and all that, and all the music is all the Christmas carols, and it kind of like starts to fade out into the new year, and then like all of a sudden a switch happens, and the Christmas carols go away, and all the Mardi Gras music comes. And Professor Longhair had a couple of tunes that are like in the top like 5 or 10 as far as Mardi Gras songs go. So I want to do one of them, and this is called Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and it's a very popular song during Mardi Gras season. But the reason I want to do it is because it's got a really hardcore mambo feel to it, and there's a lot going on rhythmically between my right hand and my left hand, and it's a very complex rhythm kind of thing, a lot more complex than the Boogie Woogies, or even still. I mean, that's a kind of a square kind of a feel to it. This mambo beat has got a lot of different things going on, and when we call for a mambo, this is always what I always reach for when I play it. And this is Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Thank you. Thank you. I need a little drink. Anyway, that's some pretty hardcore mambo. I'll break that down a little bit for you. The left hand is really, and the right hand is, which is a pretty straight up mambo feel, or Afro-Cuban, as the intellectuals say. But anyway, that is the New Orleans sound. That's the New Orleans feel. And there's a whole bunch of really educational ways to look at it, and I'm not really going to get into that because, you know, that's something that I don't know how many people would understand, including myself. But they, you know, that's really the New Orleans sound, and that is what really kind of what became the direction of the sound of all the music that came out of New Orleans from that. And like, for example, with Fats Domino, he just really kind of smoothed it out, you know. They just really kind of smoothed it out and made it something that was more palatable instead of all this like rhythmic, funky, syncopated stuff going on. Fats and Dave Bartholomew came up with the sound, and I mean, at one time, Fats had hit songs that were beating the Beatles. You know, I mean, he became that kind of a recording artist. He was one of the biggest selling, if not, I think, was he the biggest selling? Yeah, I think he was the biggest selling artist to come out of New Orleans, even beating out someone like Louis Armstrong. But anyway, that was how they commercialized that whole sound. But I want to move forward a little bit to one of my idols. I had a few piano idols in this city. I didn't come from New Orleans. I grew up in the Northeast, and I've only been living here 30 years. Believe me, some people think that's a big difference. You know, I don't get the badge of being born and bred here. But I didn't know Professor Longhair, and I didn't know some of the people out of his generation, but I knew the next generation, people like Dr. John, and the person I want to play some music from right now was a man named Alan Toussaint. And Alan and I were friends, and believe me, every time I got around him, I was like, how am I going to ask him this? You know, how am I going to work this into a question that's not going to, you know, make him feel like he doesn't want to hang out with me anymore, you know? But he really, his whole thing is he, first of all, for those of you that don't know who Alan was, he passed away in 2016, and he was not only a phenomenal piano player and a disciple of the whole Professor Longhair sound, but he wrote, like, I would say, a huge, he wrote a huge block of music that he was the hit maker. Like Motown Records had Berry Gordy, New Orleans had Alan Toussaint. There was, you know, at the time there was the whole Fats Domino and Dave Bartholomew thing. Dave Bartholomew was the band leader of the Fats Domino band and the producer of all the Fats Domino stuff. There was one other guy, his name was Earl King, who wrote a lot of New Orleans music that became standards, but no one ever came close to the volume of music that Alan Toussaint wrote. And in fact, in the 60s, they would say that if you got with Alan Toussaint, it was an instant hit. I mean, he was the hit maker. And he wrote a lot of songs for Irma Thomas, like It's Raining and Ruler of My Heart, Ernie Cato, Mother-in-Law, Lee Dorsey, he wrote Working in a Coal Mine. I mean, he wrote all these classically great songs. He even wrote songs, I don't know if you know that song, Lady Marmalade, Gitchy Gitchy Ya Ya Ya, for Patti LaBelle. That was Alan Toussaint. And he really was an amazing songwriter, and he was an amazing piano player. And if you listen to some of these hits, you'll always hear some sort of like piano parts in there, and it was always Alan playing. So when I was like, so Alan, you know, shed some light of wisdom onto me, you know, and he said, all I want to do is play Boogie Woogie and play like Professor Longhair. And when I met Dr. John, you know, we were actually, I used to play with a gentleman named Clarence Gatemouth Brown, and we did a double bill. And you heard of him? Okay. But we did a double bill up in New York with Mac, and we finished our set, and I would start the show every night. We'd start and do a couple of tunes before we brought Gate out, and I played this one song called Rock House. It went kind of like this. And it was an old Ray Charles tune, and we're in our dressing room. They're setting Mac's band. Dr. John, his real name was Mac Rebenak. They were setting up his band, and there was a knock at the door, and they were like, "Who's the piano player?" And it's like, "Oh, did I do something wrong?" That's me. And they said, "Mac wants to meet you." So I went back there, and this is the first time I was around him, and I was like, Ralph Cramden I was like, I didn't know what to say, But he was basically said the same thing. I want to play like Professor Longhair and play Boogie Woogie. And that was pretty much how they all came out. I met Eddie Bo, who had Check Your Bucket and Mr. Popeye, and and I talked to Eddie Bo, and I said basically the same thing in different words of like you shed some wisdom on me, and he said, I want to play like Professor Longhair and play Boogie Woogie. So anyway, to get come around back to Alan Toussaint, he wrote some great tunes, and I really always love to play Alan songs. And this is one song that he wrote, which was his biggest hit, and it actually had a hit. Glenn Campbell had a hit for it. And every once in a while, I'll play this song, and someone will come up and be like, "Why'd you play that Glenn Campbell tune?" I'm listening, like, no. It's Alan Toussaint's song, and he had a hit with it before Glenn Campbell even knew it existed. It's a song called Southern Night, and I play it with that same kind of like rhythmic left hand, but it's got a lot of melody to it. You might have heard it, you may not have, but this was Alan's biggest hit, and I always pay some sort of tribute to him, because not only was he like a piano god to me, but he also wrote all the music for the soundtrack for New Orleans music in the 60s. Okay. Thank you. Another one of my heroes was the inevitable Dr. John. And when I grew up, he was pretty much the guy that we, first of all, got a heavy dose of. That, you know, I mean, we heard Alan songs when I grew up in New York, but they weren't so predominantly piano oriented. And Dr. John was the guy that really kind of got me, that really kind of hit me as like, this is the kind of music I want to go for and play, and I found an identity with. So I like to play a Dr. John song, and this is actually, it's kind of like, it's a New Orleans feel, but I'm going to do it with kind of a stride feel to it, and it's a song that I don't think he wrote it, but it's a song called Such a Night. you. So I'm gonna do another Dr. John song, and the reason I'm gonna do this is mostly because my friends are sitting right here and they like that. No, but the reason I want to do it is because a lot of this piano style is very rooted in church music and in gospel, and the New Orleans piano has always had that kind of sound in it. And Dr. John wrote a real pretty song a few years back that he called Dorothy, which was a song. Some people call it "Song for My Mother." His mother's name was Dorothy. I've seen it listed in some places as "Song for My Mother" and in other places as Dorothy. But it's real pretty. It's a gospel song, and it's got a 3 feel to it, which means it's more of a waltz feel, like 1 2 3 1 2 3 versus 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, that kind of thing. And the first time I heard it, I was like, I'm gonna play that song someday. And I eventually learned it. Someday finally eventually came, and I learned it. And so I want to play it for you guys. Thank you. Now you know why I had to play that one. But that's, again, it's the sound is distinctively New Orleans, and it's got this distinctive feel that is very unique to the city and syncopated. And from this style, all the New Orleans music that came after that had this same kind of rhythmic beat of those mambo feels and this rolling kind of piano feel in it. And I mean, I can continue playing like more and more of this music, and you'll just hear that it's got this sound that's different than, say, Billy Joel or Elton John or the Beatles or any of that kind of stuff that you associate more with, like, really popular music. And it all kind of branched out from Professor Longhair and that whole type of thing that he had going. And again, there were some other guys that, Professor Longhair said his influence was a guy named Toots Washington. So I immediately went out and bought all these Toots Washington records. And they were very, like, bluesy, boogie woogie, honky tonk kind of things, but it had like little songs that kind of had that feel in it, But until like Professor Longhair came along, he really cemented that sound in that style. So as much as I would like to continue playing all day for you guys, I do have a limit here. So I'm going to do one more song. I do have some CDs over here. I'm selling them for I think $10 and 2 for $20 or something like that. But, no, we can bargain. But anyway, I'm going to do one more, and this is all. I always end with this song because it's kind of like the ender kind of song, and this is a kind of a controversy song. Dr. John recorded a version of it. Professor Longhair recorded a version of it. It's actually a Ray Charles tune that his producer Ahmet Ertegun took the writing credit for. I think he wrote the lyrics, but yeah. It is a traditional boogie woogie, and the boogie woogie was actually kind of stolen from a guy named Cow Davenport. So there's a lot of stealing, a lot of borrowing, a lot of guys recorded this, and why should I be left out of the pack? So this is a song called Mess Around. Thank you so much for coming. I'll be over here if you want to just come over and say hello. I'm going to be playing around town this weekend if you want to come out and say hi too. And you can find out all about that. I'm on Facebook. You can like me on there. It's Joe Krown with a K. I said that about 1 billion times. Okay, Mess Around. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming out.
Joe Krown, everybody. On behalf of the New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park and the New Orleans Jazz Museum, thank you all for joining us today. We both provide live performances almost every day of the week, so follow us both on Facebook. Check our websites, New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park, New Orleans Jazz Museum. I hope we see you all again. Thank you.